The crash. The silence of space was suddenly shattered by the deafening roar of an explosion. Flames erupted from the tail of the ship as it spun out of control, hurtling toward the dark, uncharted planet below. Inside the cockpit, Captain Lena gripped the controls, her heart pounding. Her crew was gone. In one split second, they had all been torn apart by a blast that came out of nowhere. Her body slammed against the harness as the ship jolted, and panic surged through her. No, 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 she muttered, frantically trying to regain control of the failing ship. But it was no use. The ship was spiraling downward, too fast to stop. Through the cracked windows, she caught glimpses of the planet below, a barren world of brown dirt and dust with jagged mountains piercing the horizon. No signs of life, no cities, nothing. Just endless emptiness. With a final crash, the ship slammed into the ground, the impact knocking Lena unconscious. The ship crumpled around, her sparks flying from broken wires, the air thick with smoke and dust. When Lena woke, the world around her was a blur. Her head ached as she tried to focus. Her vision swam, but slowly things started to come into focus. The ship was a wreck, pieces of metal twisted and scattered all around her. She could barely make out the emergency lights blinking weakly. She gasped for breath. The air was thick with the scent of burning metal and dust. She tried to push herself up, but a sharp pain shot through her left leg. It was badly bruised, maybe even broken. Gripping the side of the wreckage, she managed to stand, her breath coming in quick gasps. "Hello?" she called weakly, her voice hoarse from the crash. The words felt strange in the silence of the planet. No response. She looked around, seeing nothing but endless dirt and rocks. The planet was deserted, silent, lifeless. Her heart sank. She was alone. The cold reality set in. The rest of her crew, they hadn't made it. She limped to the wreckage of the ship, hoping to find something, anything, that could help. The communication system was down, the navigation panel cracked, and useless. "Great," she muttered under her breath, frustration rising. The distress beacon should have activated automatically, but it hadn't. Nothing was working. As she stood there, the overwhelming silence of the planet pressed in on her, almost suffocating. She needed to get to shelter. The planet's atmosphere felt wrong, colder than she expected. She had to keep moving, keep looking for a way out. Lena pushed forward, her injured leg dragging behind her, her eyes scanning the desolate landscape. The only sound was the crunch of her boots against the dry earth. She couldn't help but wonder, who or what could be watching her? Far off in the distance, something caught her eye. It was a faint flicker just beyond the horizon. A structure? A building? Her heart skipped a beat. Maybe there was hope after all. But as she limped toward it, the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. The shadows around her seemed to move, shifting in the stillness of the air. Something was out there, watching her. She had no choice but to keep moving. But with each step, the feeling that she was being hunted grew stronger. The last hope, the sunless sky stretched endlessly above Captain Lena, the endless dust and rocks underfoot, a constant reminder of how alone she truly was. Every step she took felt heavier than the last, her body worn and battered from the crash. Her leg ached with each limp, but she refused to stop. There had to be something out here, something that could help her survive. There had to be hope as she staggered through the barren landscape. A glint of something caught her eye, hidden behind a jagged rock formation. It wasn't much, just a faint metallic shimmer, but it stood out against the dull brown of the desert. Her breath quickened as she changed course, limping toward the strange glint. With every step, the flicker of metal grew clearer. It was the outline of a crashed structure, half buried in the dirt, weathered by time but still standing. It wasn't much, but it was something. A shelter, she thought, her heart racing. The building could provide shelter from the harsh winds, maybe, even supplies. She approached cautiously, her eyes scanning for anything that might pose a threat. The building looked old, abandoned. Its walls were cracked, covered in a layer of dust as if no one had touched it in years. Decades, maybe even centuries. Yet there it was, still intact, still standing. Lena's fingers brushed against the surface of the structure, and a strange shiver ran down her spine. It felt wrong. The metal was cold, almost unnaturally so. Her pulse quickened as she pulled open a rusted door, cringing at the screech of its hinges. Inside was dark and damp, the air stale. A faint light flickered from the corner of the room. An old console still powered on. Desperation took over. She limped toward it, ignoring the pain in her leg. This was it, the last hope. Her hands shook as she pressed buttons trying to access the communication systems, but the screen remained blank. Nothing. The only sound was the low hum of the console and the faint whistling of the wind outside. No signal. No way to reach anyone. Her eyes narrowed as she moved closer to the console, her gaze falling on something unexpected. A small alien symbol was etched into the side of the device. It was faint but unmistakable. Lena's heart skipped. This wasn't just some random structure. This was alien technology. Before she could inspect it further, a faint sound echoed from the far side of the room. It was soft at first, like a low whisper carried on the wind. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. Was it an animal? Or something else? The sound grew louder, closer. Something was moving. She turned toward the sound, her eyes scanning the dark corners of the room. Then the shadows shifted. Slowly. Too slowly. There, standing in the doorway, was something not quite human. A figure, tall and thin, its skin glistening with an iridescent glow that almost made it seem like it was made of light itself. The figure stepped into the dim light of the console, and Lena's breath caught in her throat. The creature's eyes, black, endless voids, locked onto hers. In that moment, Lena felt a rush of cold fear and a strange sense of recognition. The alien wasn't here to harm her. It wasn't here to kill. It was waiting, watching. For some reason, Lena felt it was waiting for her. But why? Encounter with the unknown. Lena's breath quickened as the alien figure loomed in the doorway, its dark eyes unwavering, as though it could see straight through her. The air in the room grew colder, and every instinct inside her screamed to run, to get away from this strange, unsettling presence. But her legs, already trembling from the pain of her injuries, refused to move. The creature's form was almost ethereal, its body shifting with a faint glow like it was made of smoke and starlight. The air around it shimmered with a strange energy, as if the very fabric of reality bent and rippled with its presence. Lena could hardly comprehend it. It was unlike anything she had ever seen or even imagined. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Lena's pulse thudded in her ears, drowning out everything except the beating of her heart. The alien did not approach, but neither did it retreat. It simply stood there watching her with those vast, endless eyes. What are you?" Lena managed to whisper, her voice shaking. The words sounded foreign in the stillness, as if the very room was holding its breath. The creature's eyes flickered, but it did not speak. Instead, it raised one slender arm, pointing toward the console in front of Lena. A soft hum filled the room, and the air seemed to vibrate with energy. Slowly, the console flickered to life, its screen glowing with strange symbols, more alien than any language Lena had ever encountered. It was almost as if the alien was trying to communicate with her through the technology, speaking through its actions, guiding her toward something she couldn't yet understand. Lena stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached out to touch the console. As her fingers brushed against it, a surge of electricity shot up her arm, making her gasp. The symbols on the screen rearranged, forming a single word that burned itself into her mind, glowing brightly before fading away. Survive. The word echoed in her thoughts, but before she could process it, the alien's eyes flickered again. Lena's heart skipped. It was almost as if the creature was reading her. No, not reading her, she realized. It was connecting with her, speaking to her through her thoughts. A vision flashed in her mind. The alien was showing her images, terrifying, violent images of a war-torn world. Humans and aliens clashing, cities burning, lives destroyed. And then, the most haunting image of all, a broken, deserted planet, devoid of life, its once vibrant surface now nothing but dust and ruin. Lena gasped, stumbling backward, the vision still lingering in her mind. The alien's gaze never left her. "Why are you showing me this?" she whispered, barely able to hold her composure. But the alien didn't answer with words. Instead, it lifted a hand to its chest and pressed it gently. A soft, sorrowful hum resonated in the room, like a mournful song carried on the wind. The alien's body flickered, a subtle sign of distress. It wasn't just trying to communicate, it was trying to share something with her. A deep unspoken pain that resonated within her very soul. Before Lena could react further, the air in the room seemed to shift again, the cold growing even more intense. A distant rumble echoed from outside the structure, a sound that made her blood run cold. It wasn't thunder. It wasn't natural. Something was coming. The alien's expression didn't change, but its eyes widened in urgency. It moved toward the door, gesturing for Lena to follow. Without thinking, she scrambled to her feet, ignoring the pain in her leg, and followed the alien toward the exit. Whatever was out there, she had no time to question. The creature stepped into the harsh light of the planet's surface, and Lena hesitated for only a moment before stepping outside after it. As soon as her boots hit the dust, she froze. The air was thick, and she could see nothing but the endless wasteland stretching in all directions. But something was wrong. A shadow, vast and menacing, loomed on the horizon, casting an unnatural darkness over the land. It was moving closer, faster, and then she saw it. A massive ship. But it wasn't just any ship. This one was heavily armed, its metallic surface gleaming with a sharp, cruel edge. It wasn't human. Lena's stomach turned as the realization hit her. The war hadn't ended. It was still happening. A deadly revelation. The ground beneath Lena's boots felt unsteady, as if the planet itself was trembling. The massive ship on the horizon grew larger with every passing second, casting a long shadow that crept across the barren land like a creeping doom. Lena's breath hitched in her chest. This wasn't just an alien ship. It was something far more sinister. Something tied to the broken history she had just glimpsed in the alien's vision. Her eyes flicked to the creature beside her. It was standing perfectly still, its strange, glowing form barely moving as though it were contemplating the ship. The alien's black eyes met hers, a flash of something she couldn't quite read. Fear? Concern? Its gaze shifted to the ship, again, and then back to Lena. Without warning, the alien extended its arm, a soft hum filling the air as its fingers twitched. A strange symbol pulsed in the air between them, a ripple of energy like a fleeting shadow. It was trying to communicate again, but this time Lena could feel it wasn't just a message, it was a warning. The alien's voice, distant and cold, echoed in her mind. This is where it all ended. For us. For you. Lena's heart skipped a beat. The alien's words made the air feel heavy, the weight of its meaning settling like a stone in her chest. She instinctively took a step back, her body recoiling from the words that now haunted her thoughts. What do you mean? What happened? She thought, her voice trembling inside her mind. The alien's form flickered slightly, almost as if it were struggling to hold itself together. A crackling sound filled the air around them. Then the alien's voice returned, but this time it was laced with sorrow. Your people did this. They brought the end. You abandoned us, left us to die, and now you've come again. Lena's blood ran cold. Her people? What was it talking about? She had no memory of any war, no memory of her ancestors wiping out an entire alien race. The idea seemed unfathomable, but the more she looked at the alien, the more she understood. This was the last remnant of a civilization that had been decimated by humanity's greed. It wasn't just an artifact. It was a survivor. Suddenly, the alien's form began to shift more violently, its glowing edges flickering erratically. A painful shriek rang out, not from the creature but from somewhere far in the distance. Lena's eyes snapped toward the horizon. The ship was closer now. It was coming and it was armed. "They're here," the alien whispered, its voice barely audible in her mind. "They seek what is ours, what is lost. They will not stop." Lena clenched her fists, feeling a surge of anger and confusion. Who were these invaders? Why did they want to take everything from the alien species? And then, a deeper truth began to settle in her mind like a poison. The alien wasn't just a survivor. It was also a witness. It had seen the horrors of humanity's past, the wars, the devastation, and now its people were gone. But the creature, this being, was left with nothing but the bitter aftermath. Suddenly the alien stepped forward, closer to Lena. Its presence was overwhelming, almost suffocating. There was something ancient about its sadness, something that felt like it had existed long before Lena had ever stepped foot on this forsaken planet. "We are not the only ones left," it whispered into her mind. "They will come for you too, for your kind. They are hunting you." Before she could respond, a loud, distorted voice echoed through the alien ship's communication system, breaking the silence like thunder. "Captain Lena, are you there? Respond, now." It was a voice she knew, a voice from her past. It was Commander Gregor, her former commanding officer. His voice crackled through her earpiece, though she hadn't even realized it was still working. But what shocked her more wasn't the fact that Gregor was trying to contact her. It was the urgency in his voice, the fear. "Lena, you have to listen. They're coming for you. You can't stay on that planet." The message was cut off abruptly, leaving only static. Lena stood frozen, staring into the alien's dark eyes, the weight of the truth crashing over her. Who was coming for her? And why had Commander Gregor warned her? In that instant, the world around her seemed to shift. The alien's mournful gaze met hers one last time, and for the first time Lena understood. This was not just about survival. This was about a reckoning. A war that had never truly ended, only buried beneath layers of time and forgotten history. The alien stepped back, its form flickering. It had one last message for her. You will either destroy them or be destroyed. And with that, it vanished into the shadows, leaving Lena alone, but no longer unaware. The human spirit, Lena's breath came in sharp, ragged bursts, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The alien's cryptic warning echoed in her mind, a constant reminder that something far worse was coming for her. She stood on the edge of a lifeless wasteland, the massive, threatening ship still looming in the distance. The alien was gone, leaving behind only its words and a question that gnawed at her soul. What was she supposed to do now? She had only one option: survive. But how? She wasn't a soldier. She wasn't equipped for this kind of fight. She was just a captain, a leader. But that didn't mean she couldn't lead. It didn't mean she couldn't find a way to keep going. The air around her was thick with the scent of dust and metal, the planet's oppressive silence broken only by the distant hum of the approaching enemy. The alien's words were still fresh, in her mind, but they didn't stop the creeping despair threatening to choke her. Was this the end? Was this how the human race would fall, unaware, unprepared, and alone? A flash of movement caught her eye, and she snapped her head around. The alien technology, that strange glowing console, was still active in the abandoned structure she had found. It had been silent ever since the alien had left, but now there was a soft pulse of light emanating from it, almost as if it was calling her back. "I don't have time for this," she muttered to herself, gritting her teeth as she limped toward the building. Every step felt like an eternity, but she had no choice. She couldn't give up. As she entered the structure, the familiar coldness of the air surrounded her once again. The flickering lights buzzed weakly as she approached the console, This time it was different. It wasn't just a tool or an artifact. It was an ally, a last glimmer of hope in the middle of a nightmare. Lena pressed her fingers to the interface, hoping for some kind of response, anything that could give her an edge against the looming threat. The screen flickered, then steadied, and the same alien symbols from earlier appeared. But this time, something else flashed beneath them. A map. Map of the planet, of the surrounding area, with a specific location marked in a deep red. It wasn't just a destination, it was a potential weapon. Lena's pulse quickened as she examined the coordinates. This could be the key to stopping the enemy, but she had no idea what kind of weapon it was. Was it a trap? Or was it the only chance she had to survive? Before she could make a decision, another message appeared on the screen. This time not in symbols, but in plain, simple text. Only you can activate it. But you must hurry. They will be here soon. Lena froze. Only her? The weight of that. Responsibility settled over her like a cloak of iron. She wasn't just a survivor. She was the one who had to change the fate of everything. If she didn't succeed, the planet would fall, and so would humanity. She gripped the console, her knuckles white. For a brief, fleeting moment, she felt the sting of doubt. Was she enough? The alien had been right. Humans had a long, dark history of destroying what they didn't understand. The alien species had learned that the hard way. Now she was standing on the precipice of history, with the power to either end it or save it. She had to fight. Lena straightened, determination flooding her veins. She couldn't rely on anyone else. The communication systems were down. The ships were either gone or destroyed. This was her fight. She turned away from the console, her eyes set on the distant horizon, where the alien ship loomed like a dark storm on the edge of the world. It was coming for her, coming for the alien species, and it wasn't going to stop. But if Lena had learned anything from her training, it was that a fight wasn't always about power. It was about will, and the will to survive, to rise above. The odds was something that humans had in abundance. As the sun began to dip lower on the horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked earth, Lena limped toward the location on the map. Each step was a battle, but she was determined. This wasn't just about saving herself, it was about something much bigger. She was about to face the consequences of an ancient war, but she would do it with the only weapon she had left, her humanity. The enemy revealed. The landscape stretched out before Lena like a barren sea, endless and empty, the cracked earth stretching for miles in every direction. The sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in hues of blood red and orange, casting long, eerie shadows over the desolate planet. With every step, Lena's leg throbbed painfully, but she ignored it. She had no time to feel pain. She had a mission to complete. The coordinates on the alien map burned in her mind, urging her forward. But with each step, her thoughts drifted back to the message from Commander Gregor. The warning. The cryptic voice that had cut off so suddenly. What had happened to him? Where was the rest of her crew? Why were they being hunted? She had to know. But the answer would have to wait. The weapon, whatever it was, had to come first. But as she walked, a sudden chill washed over her, the kind of chill that sent a spike of dread up her spine. The wind picked up, howling across the wasteland, stirring dust in swirling vortexes. Something in the air felt wrong. It wasn't just the planet anymore. Lena paused, her heart skipping a beat. Her gaze shot to the horizon where the massive alien ship had been. It was gone. Gone. She took a cautious step forward, scanning the sky. Where had it gone? She felt an uneasy tightening in her chest, as though the very ground beneath her had turned against her. A sudden noise cut through the silence, a deep, low rumble that vibrated the ground. Lena's pulse quickened as the sound grew louder, closer, and then, without warning, a fleet of ships appeared. They were massive, sleek, and cold, cutting through the air with deadly precision. The ships weren't like anything Lena had ever seen. They were too advanced, too efficient. black as night, their surface reflecting nothing but darkness. Lena's breath caught in her throat. The ships weren't just alien, they were human. She staggered back, disbelief crashing over her in waves. Human? These ships had the same design, the same unmistakable signature of a military fleet, but they weren't from her people. They were something new, something far more dangerous. Then the realization hit her, like a cold slap to the face. These weren't military ships. These were mercenaries. The mercenaries were hunting her. But why? Hadn't her people abandoned this war long ago? Hadn't they moved on from the horrors of their past? Had they? Or had humanity's greed, its thirst for power, never really been quenched? Lena's mind raced as the fleet descended one by one, their engines roaring like beasts of prey. She instinctively dropped to her knees, hiding behind a cluster of rocks, her pulse pounding in her ears. They were here, and they weren't here for a rescue. Her grip tightened around the alien artifact strapped to her wrist. It buzzed faintly, almost as though it recognized the threat. It could help, right? But in that moment, Lena realized something worse. The mercenaries were not just after the alien artifact, they were after her. One of the ships slowly descended and landed, sending up a cloud of dust that stung Lena's eyes. The sound of its landing gear grinding against the earth was deafening. She could hear the hissing of airlocks opening, the muted voices of the mercenaries as they prepared to disembark. She couldn't stay hidden. They would find her, and they would kill her. She had to move. Lena's instincts kicked in. She pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the burning in her leg. The weapon, the map, was nearby. She had to reach it before they did. But as she turned to sprint, a voice stopped her dead in her tracks. "We know you're there, Captain." Lena froze. The voice was cold, flat, mechanical. It echoed through the barren landscape, its source impossible to pinpoint. How did they know? She hadn't made a sound, but as she looked around, the realization came crashing in. The mercenaries weren't just after her. They had tracking systems. They had been tracking her since her ship crashed. "Come out now and we'll make this quick," the voice continued, dripping with malice. "We just need the artifact, and you're a bonus." Lena's stomach twisted. They were mercenaries, hired killers. But there was something worse about this, something even more sinister. They were after her because she was human, not for any reason related to the artifact, not for some mission. They were after her because they saw her as nothing more than a legacy of a brutal past, a witness to what humanity had done to this world. Her throat tightened as the weight of what she was up against settled in. The enemy wasn't just the mercenaries, it was humanity itself, a side of it that had been abandoned, erased from history, and now sought revenge for the destruction it had once suffered. The mercenaries' ships circled in the sky, like vultures closing in on their prey. Time was running out. Lena swallowed hard. She wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not ever. The fight wasn't just for survival. It was for something more. A chance at redemption. A chance to stop the sins of the past from destroying everything. The ground beneath her feet trembled as the mercenaries closed in. And Lena, she was ready. The final stand. The wind howled across the barren wasteland, kicking up clouds of dust that stung Lena's eyes and coated her skin. She stood at the edge of the rocky outcrop, the alien artifact now firmly in her grasp, its hum vibrating through her body. She could hear the ships, mercenary ships circling above like vultures circling prey. They were closing in. Time was running out. Lena's mind raced. She had no way of knowing how much longer she had before they found her. But there was no turning back now. She had come this far, faced every obstacle in her path, and no amount of fear or doubt was going to stop her. She was human. She was resilient. And she would not let the past define the future. With a deep breath, she turned toward the distant plateau where the alien weapon lay hidden, its energy pulsing in the depths of the canyon. The map had led her here, but she had no idea what kind of weapon she was about to face. Was it a bomb? A machine? A key to something far beyond her comprehension? The only thing she knew for certain was that it had the power to change everything. Her injured leg throbbed, but she ignored it. Every step was a battle against the pain, but it was nothing compared to the weight of what lay ahead. She had one chance, one shot. As Lena approached the plateau, the ground beneath her feet began to vibrate. The mercenary ships were closer, now. They had landed just beyond the canyon's edge, their engines growling like hungry beasts. The sound of boots crunching against the rocky terrain sent a shiver down her spine. They were coming. She could see them now. Black-clad soldiers armed with advanced weapons, their faces hidden behind visors. They were too organized, too ruthless to be anything but professionals. And their goal was clear. Eliminate her. Take the artifact. Lena's hand tightened around the alien device. This ends now, she thought. She took a deep breath, moving toward the entrance of the canyon. The air was thick with tension, each step echoing in her ears as she made her way toward the weapon. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for the moment when everything would change. The first mercenary stepped into view, his weapon aimed directly at her. His visor reflected the pale, dying sunlight as he shouted, "There she is, take her down." Without thinking, Lena dove to the side, rolling behind a jagged rock formation just as the first blast of energy shot past her, missing by inches. Her pulse surged, her body moving on instinct. This was it. There was no turning back. The mercenaries opened fire, their weapons sending streams of bright blue energy crackling through the air. But Lena wasn't about to let them have the first blow. She sprinted forward, darting between rocks, using the alien artifact to guide her, the strange power surging through her body, pushing her faster, stronger, more focused than she'd ever felt. Then she reached it. The alien weapon. It stood tall, almost otherworldly, its surface covered in glowing symbols that shifted and pulsed with an ancient energy. Lena's fingers brushed against the smooth surface and the entire structure hummed to life, a low, resonant sound that echoed through the canyon like the heartbeat of the planet itself. The mercenaries were closing in, their voices growing louder, their weapons trained on her position. She was running out of time. Lena pressed her palm to the center of the weapon, the symbols beneath her fingers swirling and shifting. The ground trembled beneath her feet as the weapon activated, a blinding light suddenly exploding from its core, sending a shockwave through the air that knocked the mercenaries off their feet. For a moment, the world went silent. The light from the weapon bathed everything in a surreal glow, and Lena's heart raced in her chest. Had it worked? Was it enough? The answer came in the form of a low, growling roar from the sky. The mercenary ships, now caught in the energy blast, were struggling to stay aloft, their engines sputtering as they began to descend. The weapon wasn't just a tool. It was a force of nature, a planetary defense system designed to protect the very soul of this world. But just as the first mercenary ship began to plummet to the ground in flames, Lena realized something else. This wasn't just about stopping the mercenaries. The weapon was calling to the planet itself, waking it from its long slumber, responding to her activation. And it wasn't just the mercenaries that it had targeted. A massive shadow appeared in the sky, eclipsing the fading light. Lena squinted, up, her heart thumping in her chest. What she saw was not a ship, not an enemy force, but an ancient, massive creature, as old as the planet itself, its wings stretching wide, blotting out the sun.